When her sister Riley goes missing, Mia's desperate search for her falls into obsession upon realizing that the imaginary demon from their childhood may have been real. Hi, my name's Zach, and today we are talking and reviewing Chris Stuckmann's directorial debut, Shelby Oaks. Like many of you, I started this YouTube channel because I cannot watch a movie without needing to talk about it afterwards. If that sounds like you, you're in the right place. Consider hitting that subscribe button. Also, comment down below your thoughts and opinions on Shelby Oaks. I definitely want to hear what you guys have to say. Going into Shelby Oaks, I had a lot of excitement surrounding this movie, all because of who wrote and directed it, Chris Stuckmann. Now, when I start these videos with, I start this YouTube channel because I just like to talk about movies. Well, to go even deeper into that, I started this YouTube channel because way back in 2011, around 2011, 2010, I discovered Chris Stuckmann, who was, of course, one of the pioneers of film criticism on this platform. He is definitely a reason why so many of us are doing this to this day, because for me, Chris Stuckmann talked about movies. He had such a passion for movies in a way that I always wanted to engage with. I didn't necessarily have that around me in my real world, in my real life. So to go onto YouTube and to see Chris Stuckmann upload movie reviews and to go through his channel and find all these analysis and these breakdown videos that he would do, which I had never seen content like that before, especially for film, I just started to become really admiring of this man. And I like to say that Chris Stuckmann was really my film teacher through my teenage years, because I learned so much about film and how to express your love about movies from watching Chris Stuckmann, from his passion about movies. So when I tell you that I took not one, not two, not three, but 4 pictures of myself outside of my theater in front of the Shelby Oaks poster, it's because I honestly feel like this is one of those reviews where I feel honored that I get to be here reviewing this. I feel so honored that I get to be able to witness Chris Stuckmann go on this journey from film criticism to filmmaker and actually have his movie play in my theater. I mean, just a little background for my theater. My theater doesn't usually take movies like this. Shelby Oaks is a crowd-funded film that, of course, it broke records of Kickstarter where it raised over $1 million to get made, and then Mike Flanagan jumped on board, and eventually Neon actually came as the distributor for Shelby Oaks. But my theater doesn't take these small, puny little $1 million movies, $2 million movies. And actually, the night before Friday, they weren't even playing Shelby Oaks. I checked the morning of Friday just to double check, and they had added Shelby Oaks to their screening. So the fact that my theater, who doesn't take these kind of movies, was playing Shelby Oaks was another big reason why I needed to go out and support this film. I'm rooting for Stuckmann. I've always been rooting for Stuckmann. And so all this background is to give you kind of my frame of context of going into Shelby Oaks. And of course, being a fan of Stuckmann, I have some bias for sure going into this film. I know a little bit more about this director from watching him from all these years than other directors that I go in to watch their films for. Now, with all that ground laid, let's start talking about this movie. And let's start with what works about Shelby Oaks. And I'm just gonna cut right to the chase. I enjoyed my time watching Shelby Oaks. And when you go into this movie, it's not one of those big budgeted horror films. This has a very small scope. It's very small scaled. There's only about truly like 4 main actors in the movie. The way that he presents this story, it's interesting to watch his reviews and hear the influences that he loved growing up, and then watching Shelby Oaks and kind of seeing those come into play. There's a lot in here of M. Night Shyamalan for sure, where Chris Stuckmann will do kind of the M. Night Shyamalan thing in this movie where he'll hold on shots for a little bit longer than you're expecting him to. And Chris Stuckmann, he is said in many of his videos that, and he's made it very well known that M. Night Shyamalan is a huge influence for him. He loves M. Night Shyamalan. So there's definitely moments of that you'll notice when watching Shelby Oaks. But the thing about that is Chris Stuckmann does a really good job of bringing that to Shelby Oaks. There were a lot of sequences in this movie where I felt very unsettled. From the get-go, Chris Stuckmann, I think, accomplished creating an eerie and tense atmosphere that lasted throughout the entirety of the film. And Chris Stuckmann uses a lot of different filmmaking techniques to establish this sense of just disturbance and also to flesh out and bring this world to life. There's kind of this YouTube-like prologue that leads you into the story. When we get past the title card, that's when the movie transitions into more traditional film. And both of these styles work pretty seamlessly together to create this mystery and really draw you into the story. And they also work to create this overall sense of eeriness throughout the entire film. The horror here that Stuckmann is trying to pull off is a little bit more sophisticated, a little bit more subdued. So you don't have very many loud horror sequences. There's a lot of things happening in the background. There's a lot of things that just the quietness or even the way that the music is building, that's what's creating this sense of terror and fear within you. There are moments where he doesn't even bring an acknowledgement to what's on screen, and you'll just kind of catch things in the background that just add to the sense of just feeling unsettled. And that's the word that I would use to really describe Shelby Oaks. It's just a very unsettling movie. On top of that, Chris Stuckmann does get some really good performances out of his actors here, especially the lead actor here, Camille Sullivan. I felt the performer was very strong, and I actually thought the character was also pretty strong, which Chris Stuckmann and along with his wife, they wrote this film, not just directed, but he's also got writing credit. When it comes to how he establishes these characters, even the relationship that he establishes between Mia and Riley, because Mia and Riley really don't share much screen time, as she's gone missing by the beginning of the film and Mia is looking for her all throughout the entirety of the film, but he's still able to let you in on their connection and their relationship without really having them on screen together. I really did buy into the sister relationship, and there's a very small amount of time where they had to establish that, and I thought it was done pretty well. So for me, this is a pretty strong directorial debut for Chris Stuckmann. I think that this is really going to open doors for him to continue on in his directing career. But it's not a perfect film. No film is. So we got to talk about what didn't work for me about Shelby Oaks. And while I am here praising Chris Stuckmann's directing for this film, I legit think that he did a fantastic job with this in the directing department. When it comes to Chris Stuckmann writing the film alongside directing, that might have been where he bit off a little bit more than he could chew. There's a couple issues with the writing. I do think that the story overall worked for me. I wasn't a huge fan of some of the more blatant horror tropes, and even the way that the film kind of concludes and ends. It starts to try to be a little bit bigger than I think the film before it was attempting to be. And for me, that's where it got a little bit shaky. Also, I found that the dialogue between characters a lot of the times felt a little bit stilted to me, a little bit sharp. I do think that the writing here was the weaker elements of Stuckmann's work. And like I said, I think the story flowed pretty well, but there's also a lot of moments within the story where you can nitpick a lot of decisions that are made by characters and even within the story itself. Like my brother was mentioning, there's a moment where a character gets blood on her face during what's obviously daylight, and then it goes to a night scene and they still have the blood on their face, and he saw that as a little bit of an inconsistency. That didn't bother me as much. I mean, for all we know, that person's in shock and all that stuff, but there are moments throughout the story where you could nitpick some of the story beats for sure. There's also a lot of moments where it feels a little bit like Chris Stuckmann's gone into his trick bag and pulled out the same trick a couple too many times. There's a lot of moments where characters will slowly turn their eyes and slowly start to look behind them. And then we get a shot behind them and there's nothing there. And we go back and they're still turning their head. And, you know, it creates that sense of, like, suspense. But when it happens so many times throughout the film, it starts to lose that sense of suspense for me. And you start to pick up on the trick that Chris Stuckmann is playing with that. Speaking of tricks, there's a couple moments, like I said, there are moments where the frights and the terror are very well done and have this slow build to them. There's also moments where they start to get a little bit more blatant and in your face, and there are definitely aspects that he's trying to make scary that just didn't really work for me. For example, there's a recurrence of dogs in this film where he tries to make these dogs scary, and they just never really came across to me scary. There's also moments where he shows more than I think I would have liked him to have shown, like when he is keeping things in the shadows, keeping things in the darkness, and more so alluding to things as opposed to just blatantly showing you what those things are. I think that's when Shelby Oaks' fear-inducing scenes work the best. When he starts to show you blatantly what these things are, they're just more frightening when it's played to the imagination and your mind kind of fills in the gaps throughout the film. But the thing that really stuck out to me about Shelby Oaks is Chris Stuckmann. When you watch his YouTube videos, when you watch his film reviews, he has such a passion and love for the art of filmmaking. And when you watch Shelby, at least when I watched Shelby Oaks, that same passion and love came through on the big screen. Every scene in this feels like it is set up and shot with intention and purpose. There are a lot of sequences, individual scenes in this that I really liked watching and really got under my skin at times. As a whole package, I wouldn't say that Shelby Oaks works 100% for me, but there was enough enjoyment, enough suspense and tension that I was feeling throughout the film that I walked out really enjoying myself, really enjoying this film, and just being impressed and honestly proud of Chris Stuckmann's work here. So I'm going to give Shelby Oaks a solid recommend. I personally really liked this film, and I sincerely hope that there's many more opportunities for me to get Stuckmannized in the theaters for years to come.